Hey everybody, welcome into another edition to the Point Podcast. Everybody's doing well on this Wednesday. Fun show yesterday with Seamus. Hope you guys got checked that out if you haven't. That's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. It's fun show. We talk about a lot of different stuff, got into some games, and Seamus will be back next Tuesday, as he normally is, and we'll talk about Major League Baseball and the impending trade deadline, which is August 2nd, which was a week yesterday. So we're 6 days away from that. So that's upcoming. And a lot to get into today. Couple of noteworthy things when it comes to the NFL. There's this Live Tour story that I want to talk about and why it could be a major thing. And I think it would be a bigger hit to the PGA Tour than anything that's happened so far when it comes to players leaving the PGA for the Live. Some really good baseball last night we're going to touch on. Subway Series was a great game between the Mets and the Yankees last night. Really entertaining. The Jays won their 7th in a row. Saw a really fun game between the Brewers and Twins that I got into. Stayed up to watch that one. That was a fun game as well. So a lot to get into today. But let's start with, I touched on this yesterday, and what I discussed yesterday was Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson and why Kyler Murray's contract would help Lamar Jackson, in a sense, get more money because Lamar Jackson has done more throughout his career. He's won an MVP. He's won a playoff game. He's won a division title. Kyler Murray has not done any of these things. But I thought the story, okay, we're just going to wait to see what Lamar gets for a contract. That's when the next news will be. Maybe Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded. But no, there was just content just plopped down on the table in the last couple of days, and I didn't see this story until actually last night, where this is the far more interesting of the Kyler Murray contract. Him re-signing in Arizona, it's a formality. To me, it's like Lamar's re-signing in Baltimore. Maybe they hold out. Maybe Baltimore thinks like there's these random polls going on right now in football, and they're saying that Lamar Jackson could win 12 MVPs and he still wouldn't be regarded as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. That was a defensive coordinator say that quote. I don't know. It might have been Jack Del Rio, who is the defensive coordinator of the Washington Commanders, who made those comments about the Capitol. And I don't think he's exactly pro black people, but that's a whole other story for another day. And if that comment wasn't racial, I don't know what is. I'm not trying to make it a racial thing. But Kyler Murray re-signs, $160 million guaranteed, 102 at signing. Great. Everybody loves it. Good for Kyler. But then it's released that Kyler, in this contract, in the fine print, below the dollar amount, below the guaranteed money, below all that, there's this clause that says that Kyler Murray has to study film, study plays, study football, right? 4 hours a week. 4 hours a week, or it will be a breach of contract, and it could potentially be voided, and he would lose some of that money. So I'm just going to say this again so everybody understands. Kyler Murray, this is in writing, in a contract. He has to study football type information for 4 hours a week, or he could potentially lose money on his newly signed contract. This is not a joke. This isn't The Onion. This isn't a hoax. This is the honest to God's truth. So initially, my thought is, wow. Just wow. If Kyler Murray needs to be told that he needs to study film for 4 hours a week, how much film do you think he's watching in the first 3 years of his career? My guess is none. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, they didn't need to be told to watch film. They wanted to because they wanted to get better. Now, were they as talented as Kyler Murray? No. Kyler is dynamic. He can use his legs. And sure, you can make the argument that Peyton Manning and Tom Brady needed to watch film more than Kyler Murray because they weren't as talented. Okay, let's say I buy that argument. Well, in his second season, Tom Brady won a Super Bowl. In his second season, Peyton Manning went to a AFC Championship game. Kyler Murray hasn't won a playoff game in 3 full seasons. Tom Brady had 2 Super Bowl rings after 3 years. So, if the argument, well, he's more talented, he doesn't need to study film as much, well, that can't be true because the guys that have studied film more are having more success. I'm going to guess, I don't think Patrick Mahomes needs to be told to watch film. And he's more talented and he's a better quarterback than Kyler Murray. This is just laziness at its apex. This is such an embarrassing story for Kyler Murray and the Arizona Cardinals. It's embarrassing for Murray that he needs to be told to do his job. Yes, you show up, you go to practice, you go to a meeting, and of course you show up to the games. But in this job, a quarterback, a player, an NFL player is like an entrepreneur. Yes, the people upstairs are studying and they're working out the market, they're doing marketing, and they're doing all the kinds of things because they want to make their business succeed. They want to make more money game after game after game, year over year. Nobody cares more about their business than the person running it, right? That's 100% the truth. If you were an employee, you go to work, you might like your job, but if you're done at 4, you're done at 4:30, you're done at whatever time it is, you're done for the day. You don't think about it anymore. You don't think about customers, what you're doing, how can you do a job better in all likelihood, unless you're a really great employee. You're going home to be with your family and you'll clock back in tomorrow morning. In particular, NFL players don't have that luxury because you are an entrepreneur. You are building a team. You are studying the market. You are working to get better at your craft. And how can we better understand what they're doing over here that we're not doing? If you're Kyler Murray and you're saying, wow, the Rams are 12-4 and we're 8-8. Why are they so much better than us? Why don't I watch their film? Why don't I see what they're doing offensively that we're not, that maybe I can improve on? Or what are they doing on defense that we really struggled with the last time we played them? That makes sense, right? These players, and it's the players. Yes, management is doing a different job. These players are entrepreneurs because they're trying to build a winning team. They're trying to build a successful system. And any advantage you can get on your opponent, you'll do. And you might push back on me and say, well, Noah, if everybody's studying, there's only one winner a year. That's right. But how many Amazons are there? There's other shipping companies. Are any of them as successful as Amazon? Cincinnati Bengals had a great season last year. But they're not the LA Rams. LA Rams are Amazon. You have all these there's FedEx, there's all these different companies that ship parcels to your door. But are any of them as noteworthy? Any of them do as well in the market share as Amazon? No. So Kyler, it's beyond embarrassing, and he shouldn't have to be told to work. And I get that's the day and age we're at. I'm in the same age range as Kyler Murray. He's 25. I'm 20. I'm going to be 24 in 2 months. It is a problem. I think it's only getting worse as we look at the 18-year-olds now. I'm not trying to say that all, because you can't lump everybody in the same group. Again, that's a mob mentality and it's not fair. But I think a lot of the people my age, the younger generation, it's a lazy culture. People are doing whatever they can to not work. For instance, I look at Kyler Murray like he's back in college. You hear stories about guys that will work harder at not working or not studying to get somebody to write their test, to get answers, whatever it might be. They will work 3-4 hours to get that same result done when they could just study the book, read the book. No, I'd rather not do that. It's more of a pain in the ass to go around and ask for the answers, and they'll do that. Kyler Murray is at home playing video games, doing whatever he does as a young person. There's nothing wrong with unwinding and playing a video game. There's nothing wrong unwinding and watching a television show. Lord knows I watch a lot of them, but I still go to work in the morning. I still think about this podcast daily and how I can improve it. Maybe I should do more. But I listen to the people that listen to me, and I try to improve the product. I really do. To me, he's thinking about himself, and that's it. Kyler not studying has an impact on the whole team. He needs to study more than every other player. He needs to study more than the tight end. He needs to study more than the left tackle because he controls the ball on every play. Period. The offense runs through him. He needs to be prepared for every situation. And he just isn't at this point. Kyler Murray was like me with my driving test when I was 16 years old. I didn't read the book once. Didn't read it once. And I failed it 2 times. Third time I did have the guy talked it out with me, and I eventually passed. I didn't read it. Wouldn't. I don't know why. Just it was so boring. I just couldn't read the book. And I didn't know how many you're supposed to stop 50 meters. I've never used any of that information again. But this is the same exact thing. Kyler wants to win the game without practicing for it, without working for it. To me, it's a terrible look on Kyler, but now let's get to the Cardinals. You are signing a quarterback long-term that you worry about his buy-in. You worry that he's not studying enough. You're worrying he doesn't care enough to really look at the playbook and know it and watch the last week's game. That's not a good gamble on your part. And I'm sure they'd say, yeah, but Kyler's first year won 5 games, then he won 8 games, then he won 11. Well, you're signing him now, and clearly you put this in the contract, so clearly you believe it's an important factor. You believe that this is something that is holding you back as a team. It's hurting you. So what's the solution? To just look in the mirror and say, okay, if you study 4 hours a week, 4 hours a week, 4 hours a week, independent study outside the facility. If you don't trust him to study, why are you giving him this much money? I get he's a great talent. But to me, this is something you don't put in the contract. It's something you just have a verbal agreement. We need you to study more. There are things in life you just have a conversation with somebody. It doesn't have to be in a contract. It doesn't have to be in front of everybody. You sit down with somebody and you address it. It can be a really simple thing. You might say, Noah, I remember when I was a kid, I was told, hey, Noah, you need to make your bed. You live here, you need to make your bed every day. I hated it. I still find it completely useless. And now that I've moved out, I don't make my bed, which would piss off my mother. But hey, I moved out. It's my life. It's my space. But did I have to be in the the parent-child contract, or did she just make me aware of it? So now the Cardinals, and they will be able to track this. And here's how. You see on game days in the NFL, when players leave the field, they might have a play gets intercepted. They might have a touchdown drive. They want to look through the plays, right? Well, there's an iPad that they have on the sidelines. Well, every player gets an iPad so they can watch film on their own time. And fun fact, there's a little bit of software on there that teams can monitor when a player is on it watching film. So if Kyler is not on it for 4 hours a week, the Arizona Cardinals will be aware. That's right. They can track when he's actually doing his work. This isn't a scenario where there is no teacher. When you were in school, you had to do your work, right? You had to do the tests. You had to do homework. The teacher would check that you did it. If you didn't do it, okay, there's a 0. This isn't where he's like, yeah, I know I did it. I did the work. Michael Vick recently came out and said he didn't watch any film. He said he would have a ring if he watched some because he was that good, and the way that his teams were how good they were in Atlanta. He didn't watch a damn thing. But the Cardinals now get to look at Kyler Murray and say, are you actually doing the work? And they will know. That's how funny this is. They will be aware if he's doing the work that he said he's doing. They're not going to try any tricks. Like hand him some film and then put a $100 bill at the back. And then they get the book back and the $100 bill's still there. That used to be an old trick back in the day. Used to give rookies or potentially draftees a playbook, and then you get the playbook back and the money's still there. You're likely not going to get drafted. But it's embarrassing on both ends. I don't know how this got leaked. If this is the Cardinals, I don't see why it would benefit the Cardinals. It makes them look weak as an organization, and it makes everybody question, why the hell did you sign this guy? It also forces your quarterback to answer these questions in training camp that I'm sure he's not thrilled about answering. Why would he leak this? Then he has the perception around the media that he's not a hard worker, that he doesn't care, that he needs to be babysat, that he doesn't care enough about the work to do it consistently. That's not a good look either. So, bringing this all home, there's one last element that I think is interesting. And I kind of already touched on this, but Kyler Murray's agent, what were you thinking? How did this get into the contract? Why the hell would you let your client sign this? What? How does this benefit your client? Yes, it's a lot of money. Say, yeah, we're going to study. We're not putting it in the contract. Write up a new one. We're not signing that. Period. I heard a great agent on a podcast this week, and he said it's absolutely befuddling to him why Kyler Murray signed this or why his agent approved it. He has no clue why he said that Kyler would sign this deal because it makes no sense for him, and for the Cardinals, it's baffling as well. That if he was Kyler's agent, there's no way he'd even consider signing this contract. It's a really fascinating story. And what I'm really interested now is, does he get called out on not doing the work if he doesn't do it? Because to me, he'll want to do the work early in the season because he's been called out on it. During training camp, I think he'll be all on it, watching practices, first few weeks of the season. What about week 7? Week 8, when you're in it for a long time, it's starting to become a grind. You're halfway through it. How about your bye week? Do you have to study on your bye week? Do you have to throw a couple hours a week in there for your bye to watch the last game? Or is that null and void? I root for content. The Cardinals can win every game, they can lose every game. I don't care. I am rooting for some kind of drama when it comes to him not studying the playbook. I will openly admit that. I want that drama. I want that story because it's a delicious one. It's a content machine. It's just, how does the NFL world react? What are the Cardinals doing? Does he lose money? What's going on? But that leak, who leaked this, hopefully he still has some connections into the Cardinals facility, has connections to with that contract, so that we know what's going on midseason when it comes to Kyler's studying habits. He's an extremely skilled quarterback. Went first overall for a reason. Beyond dynamic with his baseball background, he can really sling the football. And he's been better every season he's gotten to the NFL. But the fact remains, he has not won a playoff game yet. Every season after the midway point, he has a losing record. And sure, he's great and he's really dynamic and he's got a whole lot of athleticism. But he's not winning Super Bowls yet. And I think some of that's got to be the fact that he's not studying, that he's not as prepared as some of the other quarterbacks around the league that aren't even half as talented as him. But we'll see what comes of it, but it sure is interesting moving forward here. Other news in the NFL yesterday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed veteran wide receiver Julio Jones to a one-year deal. Julio had played in Atlanta for the first 12 seasons of his career, then was cut from Atlanta, signed with the Colts last year, only got to play in 5 games because of injuries, and now his training camps are opening. He signs with Tampa Bay to team up with Tom Brady. This was rumored to be a connection earlier in the offseason. Tom wanted Julio to come to Tampa. And to me, this is a low-risk signing for Tampa Bay. They've done a few of these over the last couple of weeks. They signed Kyle Rudolph, formerly the Minnesota Vikings, and the New York Giants at the tight end position last week. He's a veteran. He's great in the red zone. Basically, he can fill in for Gronk. Julio Jones is one of the best wide receivers of his generation. He is uber talented. He made maybe the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. It wasn't for a touchdown, but his toe tap against the Patriots was absolutely insane. And he was dueling it out that day. Tom Brady was on the other side, but Julio Jones and Matt Ryan were making it rain early and often. So Julio had played with Matt Ryan for a long time. He had Carson Wentz last year, and now he gets to pair with the GOAT. He gets to go with Tom Brady. And I could see Julio Jones being a pseudo tight end in this new offense. And here's what I mean. Tampa Bay's got Chris Godwin, and they got Mike Evans. So their 2 wide receiver positions are really locked up. They don't have an inside, a slot receiver. They do have Scotty Miller, but he was really in the doghouse a lot of last year, and he did not get a lot of snaps. But at the tight end position, they have Cameron Brate, who Brady started to get a connection with last year. They got Rudolph, who they brought in. But Julio Jones is such a big receiver that you could look at him and other than his height, say this guy's a tight end. He's just such a big dude. He is a guy that is a possession receiver. And I think he could be in positions where he is lined up as a tight end for these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Julio has never been a touchdown catching wide receiver. He will catch 5 balls on a drive, but you get to the end of the drive and Matt Ryan would have found somebody else. Would have found Tony Gonzalez. Would have found Russell Gage. It didn't matter. Normally, it was not Julio Jones. He has an average of 4 touchdown receptions per season. That is not a whole lot for a guy that will likely be in Canton one day. Julio was so dynamic. Like I said, he's one of the best receivers in the history of football. And injuries have plagued him in the last couple of years, but this is no risk. It's 1 year. You can cut him. He's making the minimum salary. And to me, he wanted to finish off his career with Tom Brady. Brady's always wanted to play with Julio. Julio's always wanted to play with Brady, and now they get to do it. So I understand it on both sides. It's no risk. For Julio, he gets another opportunity to play potentially his last season in the NFL. He gets to go back to a division that he's known forever. He's played 13 of his 14 years in the NFC South, obviously being with Atlanta for the first 12 years of his career. So I don't mind the signing at all. I'm sure Brady's happy, so that's a good part for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You look at Tampa Bay's offense, they got Russell Gage. They got Russell Gage potentially could be playing slot receiver. They got Gage in the offseason. They still got Mike Evans. They re-signed Chris Godwin, Kyle Rudolph. But I think Julio is going to be more of a tight end in this offense. And that's where I expect him really to be. So that's where I expect him to really come forward and play a position for this team. So interesting signing there. Other news, Deebo Samuel. I talked about this yesterday. It'd be one of the storylines to track during training camp. Deebo Samuel announced today that working through trade scenarios, potentially re-signing in San Francisco. He won't practice. He's not going to practice. He will not be playing in preseason games. So he's reported to training camp so that he will not lose any money this year, but he's not going to practice. That is his right. And he's hoping that they can come to some sort of resolution when it comes to his contract prior to the season. But until that is completed, he will not be practicing with the Niners. So I thought Lamar Jackson would do this. I haven't heard anything about Lamar yet when it comes to this, but clearly Deebo is taking that road. He's not going to practice. He's not going to risk himself getting injured until he has some guaranteed money on the table. And so he said, while the Niners are increasingly optimistic that they will strike an agreement on a lucrative long-term contract with Samuel, that deal hasn't yet come to fruition, which means Samuel is in today's NFL parlay a hold-in. He won't practice, opting instead to do some conditioning on the side. And then Kyle Shanahan said, we all know there's a lot going on with Deebo right now. We'll see what happens. I just had a great conversation with him. So regardless of what happens, he's going to be out there and condition on the side. We'll see where he's at. Hopefully we can figure something out soon, but we're in a good place for today. So I do believe that. The fact that he is conditioning, that he showed up, but he's not doing anything. He wants to stay ready for the season. That tells me that he does have some good feelings that they will get a deal done eventually here. And to me, he's such a valuable piece to this offense. And the interest now is if he does come to a long-term extension, if he's paid like one of the best wide receivers in football and he has that security, would he play the hybrid position that he did last year? If he's already getting that money, would Deebo line up behind, play the running back position a little bit if they asked him to in the Kyle Shanahan offense? That is interesting. That would be interesting to me because if he's got the money, he might for the best benefit of the team. So I'm not sure where Deebo stands on that, but I think that is something to follow because if he does get the money, then it's about winning then because he's got his money. He's on a good team. If you can help out Trey Lance, who's a rookie quarterback, as much as you can, that's obviously something that the organization is going to want from you. But with NFL camps open, this is what happens. There's players that want new deals that don't have one yet. You see them around the league. They get done. Some of them got done a few weeks before training camp so guys can come in and play freely, play some good ball. A.J. Brown obviously got traded at the draft. He signed a long-term extension with Philly. Hollywood Brown got an extension from the Arizona Cardinals after getting traded from Baltimore. So these things happen. We'll watch with Deebo Samuel. We'll watch with Lamar. We'll see what happens when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo, if he stays in San Francisco, if he gets moved. So that's really what's happening right now. But nothing too crazy. Ben Roethlisberger made some comments this week that Cameron Hayward, the veteran, the leader of the Pittsburgh Steelers, said kind of rubbed him the wrong way. Roethlisberger said there's too many me players, if you will, too many guys that are too focused on themselves. He described it as me type attitude. And, he said this team was so important. It was all about the team. Now it's about me and this, that, and the other. I understand why there's a little bit of pushback from Cameron Hayward on that. Cameron Hayward's a team guy. He's not about me. I look at Ben Roethlisberger making these comments. I think he's talking about one person in particular on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster, and that's Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool, the man from BC who played at the University of Notre Dame, a second-round pick of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Uber talented, but the guy is delusional. Earlier this offseason said he was a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. No, he's not. He's not even top 15. He's a guy that will make a catch for 5 yards, spin the ball, let clock wind off the clock, and they lost a game last year because Chase Claypool took too long to get the ball. He will make stupid decisions. He takes stupid penalties. He is a guy that is about me and not the team. So I think this was Roethlisberger. He doesn't play in the team anymore, so he can express his opinion. He said there's too many of these type players in the league, but I still think Big Ben is Pittsburgh Steeler, to his core. That's the only team he played for. And I think he's talking about Chase Claypool. Cameron Hayward might not have liked it because it's about the whole team, but Chase Claypool is like this. I don't agree with Ben lumping everybody together because I don't think there are guys that just come out and they want to be team first guys. They want to win. Chase Claypool to me is just the antithesis of me. Think about me. This is what I'm doing. Screw the team. I just caught 8 balls. I did this. That to me is Chase Claypool, and that's who Ben Roethlisberger is calling out here. But I understand why Cam Hayward would want to defend a teammate and really reset the narrative as the new leader of the Steelers because, yes, Trubisky's been around the league, and normally the quarterback is the leader of a team. But to me, the leader of the Pittsburgh Steelers is Cameron Hayward. He's defensive tackle. He's one of the best in the NFL. TJ Watt is on the team too, but Cam Hayward is he's a great media guy. He's a guy that really holds a locker room together. People listen. I listen when he talks. I think he's a really good interview. And he's just a guy that has only played for the Steelers, and really, he's just a smart dude. So you listen up when Cam Hayward has something to say. But those are really the NFL stories of the day. Again, we'll continue to touch on things throughout training camp and as the season moves on here. But tomorrow is an important day on the Live Tour schedule because it is the 4th event for the Live Tour. It is in New Jersey at Mar-a-Lago, which is the Trump National Golf Course. And this event is going to be different than the first 3, if you will. And here's the main reason. It's in New Jersey. It's at the Trump Golf Course. So that's headline enough. But there are scheduled to be multiple protesters at the event tomorrow. And the reason for the protesters at this live event is because of the proximity to New York and how Abu Dhabi has been linked to the events of 9/11 back in September 11th, 2001. The country was affiliated with the terrorist acts that obviously destroyed a nation that day, the worst day in, you could say, the United States history in 9/11. And that government, that country had a lot to do with what happened. And obviously, a lot's changed. The United States government does business with Abu Dhabi, which is crazy if you think about it, but that's the world we live in. 20 years later, you mend fences, and it's about business more than it is about, the lives that were lost that day. And to me, I understand the protest. I have no problem with the protest. However, I will say, protest the government. Protest these organizations that are working with Abu Dhabi, that are working with these countries that are with China, with these countries that are hurting your nation. You're doing business with people that killed U.S. citizens. And is it great that golfers are going to this and working with this country? Absolutely not. But that's their decision. And they wanted to make money. They made that decision. But I do think you should be looking at the government in this case and doing something. And I'm not saying let's do what we did in Canada with the whole, what was it now? The convoy from Fredericton to Ottawa, everywhere else. I'm not in favor of that. Please. I'm not signing up for that. But why is there never any chatter about the US, Canada, all these countries doing business with these terrorist countries that committed terrorist acts? That's not an opinion. That's just a fact that they were committed terrorist-like acts on the United States on September 11th. Feel free to protest. I understand that. And I have no problem with it. But really, I think what needs to be done is to have some big reflection here and think about, okay, who really is at fault for this? And the government is in the crosshairs here, and they should be given some of this flack that the golfers have been receiving throughout the last couple of weeks. But the reason it's a big date, but it's a bigger one, and here's the reason why. Charles Barkley, former NBA great, NBA on TNT analyst, and I would argue, and I don't think it's even close, the most popular, the most charismatic, and the most sought-after media personality in North America is playing in the Live Tour Pro-Am tomorrow morning. He is currently signed with TNT for another 3 years. He does multiple commercials with Subway and Discover and a bunch of other ads. And he appeared on the Dan Patrick Show on Monday and said that he makes a little over $20 million a year. But he had a dinner with Greg Norman, who is the former pro golfer that is really the head of Live Tour. And he was told that, if he was offered $60 million a year to go to Live Tour, he would be likely leaving TNT. And the way he described it is that TNT would likely not match it. He would lose all his sponsors so that his job would be working for the Live Tour. And he did say he's got a drop-dead date. He said if he leaves New Jersey by tomorrow and he does not have an offer, if he does not have a deal like the one he's proposed, then he will stay at TNT. He loves his job, and he's not going to be a show pony for the Live Tour this much. He's been rumored to them for a week. They've gotten a lot of notoriety from Charles Barkley being linked to them, and he said he doesn't do this for free. So, Charles Barkley going to the Live Tour would be bigger, would be more important than any other pro golfer they've gotten so far. Dustin Johnson's a major champion, but who cares about Dustin Johnson other than Polina Gretzky? Not many people. Bryson DeChambeau, his protein shake sponsor likely loves him, and I don't know who sells him his weight equipment. They're probably big fans because he's ordering, every other day. But people like DeChambeau, but he's not. People that love golf are going to watch golf whether Bryson DeChambeau is playing or not. You go through the names: Patrick Reed, Sergio Garcia. It doesn't matter. Charles Barkley is the biggest get in sports media. He is charming. He has everything you'd want in an analyst. He's honest. He's open. And he's an everyman because he calls it the way he sees it. He's referred to Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers as street clothes. He called the Los Angeles Lakers this year a team of old-ass men. He's not afraid to go after anyone. But people love him. TNT's halftime show is the best halftime show of any, doesn't matter, NFL, I don't care. Throw Nate on CBS, Nate Burleson, who's a very good-looking guy with Coach Cowher and the rest of them. They're not as good as the TNT. Any NHL broadcast, doesn't matter. Put Chelios, Gretzky, it's irrelevant. Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, Ernie Johnson, and Kenny Smith are the best, but it's because of Barkley. David Faraday is one thing from NBC. He's not my favorite golf analyst. He's got a thick accent, which isn't his fault. He's from the UK, but I struggle with that accent, and he doesn't provide that much great material anyway. Steve Sands is better than him. Jim Nantz is better than him. So he's not a great get. The LIV Tour could use Barkley in a number of different ways. Maybe he plays on the LIV Tour. He loves golf. Maybe he participates in the events. They're all team events. So maybe there's something you can do there. Maybe he's an analyst. I don't know how they'd employ him, but it's notoriety. It would make you want to tune in. Barkley also said in the Dan Patrick Show that Greg Norman has told him in the meeting that they're working on a television deal, and that he believes that some networks are a little afraid to approach the LIV Tour because of the backlash they're going to receive. Protesters, people upset about the fact that you're working with Saudi Arabia. All I know for right now is he would be a game changer for the LIV Tour, period. He absolutely would be. And if they get Barkley and the LIV Tour gets a television deal, that's when the PGA Tour is going to start to shit their pants. Because you get that kind of validity. And I think if they get Barkley, they will get another really good analyst in golf that comes over. That's the danger. That's the way it works. That's the scary thing here. But if it goes on Fox and you got Barkley on the LIV Tour and you got another big name analyst and you got some really good players, well, then what are people going to tune into? If there's a LIV Tour event this weekend, as I just said. There's the Rocket Mortgage in the PGA. Well, as we currently sit here, the Rocket Mortgage is on TV. And yes, I watch a lot of sports on my computer, and I have DAZN, so I could watch the LIV Tour. But I hate the format. Barkley's a huge get if they can land him. Still get some good players. I think they'll get Cameron Smith after the President's Cup in September. But here's the biggest thing that the LIV Tour needs to do. Make it a damn golf tournament. Shotgun starts, teams, it's garbage. It's trash, their product. I don't care that DeChambeau's on the same team with Dustin Johnson. I hate it. Who needs a shotgun start? You know why I like staggered? So that we can see every shot. So that people are finishing after each other. That's what a golf tournament is. These people that are supporting the LIV Tour are supporting the LIV Tour just to be in juxtaposition to the PGA, because the PGA have kept their players under a shoe forever. No money, no stability. They can't do anything. Okay, well, you weren't watching the product to begin with. I have no problem if the LIV Tour succeeds, but I'm not going to support it because of the product they're providing right now. Change up your amateur hour fucking material, and then I'll consider it. If there's Dustin Johnson and all these great players over there, and I'm watching Wyndham Clark and Hank Lebioda putt on the PGA, I will watch the LIV Tour if it's a golf tournament. 54 holes, shotgun start, teams. I don't care about the music. Again, I'm not a golfer. I see people on Twitter complain about people playing golf while having music playing. Again, that's their lane. That's get off my lawn type stuff. I'm not going to complain about loud music. I'll let 6-year-old men do that. But come on. You're not going to have validity until your product has validity. You need to provide something that's interesting. The average golf fan is 61 years old. The average viewer on television for the PGA Tour is 61 years old. Again, I'm 23. I am an old soul. I had to learn what SMH was yesterday, which is shake my head, which I did not know. But come on. I don't think younger generation are going to start watching the Live Tour because of a team shotgun start with loud music playing. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. People are either going to watch golf or they aren't. Barkley would be a massive get. But they announced they're going to have 14 tournaments next year. They're improving their prize money. Players are going to want to go. I understand it. It's the money. But the product matters too. The product, it has to matter. Right? You look at a Ford Edge, you look at a Ferrari. Who's going to take the Ford Edge? Not me. Why is the Ferrari more money? Because it's a nicer vehicle. More people desire it. The Live Tour might have better players. But if the product is no good, are people still going to go back to what they knew? What I don't want this to be is that the PGA Tour becomes blockbuster. But instead of the Live Tour being Netflix, being a great streaming service, it's a VCR tape. It's a worse product. It's got more people, but it's a worse product than it was before. If you understand that. I don't want it to go obsolete, but I don't want the solution to what's going away to be the Live Tour, which is crap right now. Make some changes to your product, and I'll consider watching it. Because I'll be honest, I have DAZN. I could watch the Live Tour this weekend. I'm not going to. What I will watch is the PGA Tour. I'll watch it on TV. Because I love golf. It's not a great field. Patrick Cantley's playing. We got Webb Simpson, Max Homa. You're missing Rory McIlroy. You're missing some of the biggest names as they prep for the FedEx Cup. But at the same time, the people playing this weekend in the PGA Tour are playing a real golf tournament. Not some hokey team golf event that I don't care about. So I'll watch the lesser golfers, if you will, compete for a title for money that they're actually earning. That might be an old school think. That might not be the new school way, but that's how I look at it. Major League Baseball. What a game last night between the Mets and Yankees, the first of two games of the Subway Series, as they call it, where the Yankees traveled to Citi Field to play the Mets. And it was a really entertaining game. Because in the first inning, you have Aaron Judge take Taijuan Walker deep on a 3-2 pitch. Then the next pitch, he sees Anthony Rizzo, the next batter up, hits a ball out of the park. It's 2-0. Taijuan Walker just having a disastrous start to the game. But then you see the Mets come back. And what really set the tone for me, and I love this guy's a leadoff hitter. He only bats .266. That's basically Ricky Henderson in the modern age. And that's Brandon Nimmo. He's just a tough son of a bitch to get out. It was an 11-pitch at bat. He did fly out, but it was 1-2, and he had 7 consecutive foul balls. He made it a tough at bat. He stretches out the pitches per inning. That's what makes him difficult. And next up, you get a base hit, you get another single, and out comes Pete Alonso, who doubles right up the middle, and he scores a pair of runs. The best RBI hitter in baseball does it again, and before you know it, it's 2-2. Then Eduardo Escobar comes up 2 batters later. He hits the ball out of the park. It's 4-2. Jordan Montgomery almost threw 40 pitches in the first inning. He didn't last 3 innings. The Mets are a fun team to watch. Taijuan Walker's not the greatest, but he gives you 5-6 innings. Scherzer's coming back. I love Pete Alonso. To me, he's a guy that will battle with Goldschmidt for the RBI, for the NL MVP award. But Alonso's just a clutch hitter. Last night, I believe he went 3 for 4, and all 3 of his hits were basically at the knees or lower. He can stretch down and get those tough singles. He's a great at bat. He's just an RBI king, and he's great. The Mets have a lot of really good pieces. Lindor is starting to play really good baseball. He's a really smart base runner. I just really like the cut of the jib on the New York Mets. And I mentioned DeGrom's coming back. He's scheduled to pitch today in a rehab start, so he might be available as soon as next week for the Mets. He hasn't pitched in over a year in the big leagues. Scherzer goes tonight in Game 2. And last night, it was obviously an interleague game, but you felt the intensity. I listened to the game with no sound, but I could even tell watching the game that the fans were into it more. Of course, it's Mets-Yankees. You have the New York rivalry, the in-state rivalry, but it's more than that because normally the Mets are an afterthought. The Mets are a bottom feeder team. They miss the playoffs every year. They're not in a position in July where they're competing with the Yankees. Well, now they are in first in the NL East. The Yankees are first in the AL East. They're in the same position battling it out. Yankees have more of a cushion over the Blue Jays. The Mets are just hanging on above the Braves, but they're both in first place. They both expect to be in the postseason, and it's a great energy. You just felt it when Alonso comes up. He hits that double to tie the game. It was on. The Yankees hit 2 homers to start the game. The crowd never lost it. They were completely into the game. Jordan Montgomery couldn't find it, and the Mets took advantage of him. But to me, that's the key to when you know a team is playing their best baseball. Of course, pitching. But when it comes to hitting, it's at bats. Look at the Blue Jays. When they were on their skids, when they were struggling early in the season, how easy were their at bats? They averaged 4 pitches in at bat. I looked that up today in the first half of the season. 4 pitches in at bat is terrible. It's like a walk in the park. Yeah, you might hit a home run in there, but 4 pitches is not a long at bat. It's not strenuous on the pitcher. He can go deep into games. Well, last night Springer has tough at bats. Vladdy grinds one out. Kirk is a guy that's always going to give you a tough at bat. You just look around. Springer hit his grand slam on a 3-2 pitch on the 9th pitch of the at bat. That's called grinding out an at bat and waiting for the pitcher to make a mistake. The pitcher throws a fastball on the 3-2. Springer hits it all the way out of the park. He's coming back from a health scare. He looks healthy. They look motivated. And this team is starting to hit the baseball. Last year, they were phenomenal in the second half, and they started out the second half the exact same way. Springer, Guerrero, this entire team is starting to find their way. They're starting to play confident. They look like a team that is absolutely in a position where they should be the first wildcard team, and they're starting to play like the favorites they were at the beginning of the year to win the World Series. This team is good enough to go deep. But the Juan Soto should not be the target. It's been rumored Juan Soto. The Cardinals are the favorites to land him. They looked so depleted last night without Arenado, without Goldschmidt. Big losses for them. And he would help in their outfield. They have a number of good outfielders. Dylan Carlson is good. Harrison Bader has won a Gold Glove in center field. But, having Juan Soto would be fantastic. For the Blue Jays, that should not be their target. That's becoming more and more clear. They're winning games, but they need more pitching. Kikuchi is a guy that's coming back. He'll pitch tomorrow against the Tigers to start that series. I wouldn't want to start him in a playoff game. Barrios is still finding his way. Gausman and Manoah are great. But again, you have some question marks in that staff. You want to have another arm that could start a postseason game if you want, if you need it. Tampa, going into the All-Star break, was the first wildcard team. They're now the third wildcard team. They've lost 4 of their 5 games since the All-Star break. They've lost the first two games of their series against the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore rallying in the 8th inning last night. Ramon Diaz hitting a 2-run shot. Baltimore is now 3 back of Tampa for that last wildcard spot. So Baltimore is still in this. They're a game above 500. They continue to battle. Cleveland is 2.5 games back at Tampa. They beat the Red Sox last night. And Seattle is in the second wildcard position, 2 games behind the Toronto Blue Jays as they walked off the Texas Rangers. Now, to me, Boston is 3.5 games out of the final wildcard spot. They lose to the Guardians. They got swept by the Blue Jays. They've lost 4 of their last 5. To me, Boston's going to be a seller at the trade deadline. They are 500. They had a great stretch, but their pitching is not good enough. They don't have a good enough team to win a World Series. Xander Bogaerts could very well opt out and leave the Boston Red Sox after this season. I would explore trading him. I'd be looking around saying, what can we get for a guy like Xander Bogaerts? Can we get 2 of your best prospects in your system? Because I wouldn't be shocked if he's not in Boston next year. He's a guy that's going to want a lot of money. I'm not sure Boston's going to open the paycheck because they traded Mookie Betts when they really wouldn't give him that money. They've given it to Chris Sale, but he's been injured the whole time. Rafael Devers will want a big contract coming up. They got JD Martinez under contract. It's interesting for Boston the way a lot of their depth pieces are just not performing. Bobby Dahlbeck's having a terrible season. Jackie Bradley Jr. cannot hit the backside of a barn door. Franchi Cordero is basically a DH that doesn't provide a whole lot of hitting. So get what you can for some of these assets. Again, a lot of their depth pieces in their lineup on a given basis, you're not going to get a lot for. Christian Vasquez is a catcher / first baseman / DH. To me, he's a guy that could fetch something on the open market. He's one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. He's a consistently good bat. Again, he provides some power. To me, he'd have value. You might not want him catching every day of the week, but he could DH for you. He could play first base if you need him to. He's a guy that can have value. Again, Xander Bogaerts is a guy you need to consider trading because I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, and you don't want to lose a guy of that magnitude for nothing. If you don't have a deal yet, I believe Bogaerts is represented by Scott Boras, so you know Scott Boras is going to tell his client, we are going to free agency because that's the way it works with Scott Boras. We're not going to re-sign with the team we were just on because we can make more money getting to free agency, even if that's a lie. So knowing his history, jump on it now and say, you know what, we're gonna trade you to Milwaukee, just for instance, and you don't have to re-sign there, but you can try to win a World Series, see what happens, go play infield there. You're guaranteed to make the postseason in Milwaukee. We'll see what happens. There's many teams that would want his services, but I look at it, I think Baltimore has a better chance of making the postseason right now than the Boston Red Sox. I think Baltimore is as good. Their pitching is as consistent, and they're getting Anthony Santander is finding it. I mean, Ramon Diaz, even Rougned Odor seem to find his battle. This Baltimore team is feisty. They're not giving up, and the rest of this week is big for Baltimore. They have a game tonight and a game tomorrow afternoon against the Tampa Bay Rays in Baltimore. If you can get a pair of wins, if you could sweep the Rays, even win 3 out of 4, you'd finish this series 2 back of the Tampa Bay Rays. That is doable. That is absolutely doable. Be 2 games back, and you put yourself in a position to fight down the stretch. Tampa's reeling. Cleveland's still in the fight. The White Sox they're 3 games back as well. They're 3 games back in the wild card, 3 games back in the division of the Minnesota Twins. So, but again, really entertaining games last night. To me, the key for the Blue Jays is their at-bats. And for seeing Aaron Judge, he hits another home run. That's just what he does at this point. Some really entertaining baseball. As I mentioned, you saw the Brewers walk off the Twins. You saw the Padres beat the Tigers in extra innings. Braves got back against the Phillies. They're playing right now. Phillies are up 5-2 in the 6th inning. Phillies are still very much in the wild card hunt in the National League, and they deserve a ton of credit. They've been depleted all year. Bryce Harper's still not playing. They're finding ways to win. They're looking to take 2 or 3 from the Braves. And in the National League, Philadelphia is a half game back of St. Louis for that final wild card. So they'd be right there. If they win today, they'll both be 51 and 47. San Francisco is 2.5 games back, and the Miami Marlins are 4.5 games back. I think St. Louis and Philly, San Francisco is hanging on at this point. They're really struggling right now. They need to find some consistency. They need to find some wins because I don't see the Marlins catching up at 4.5 games back. The Giants need to find it sooner. They need to consider selling some pieces at the deadline as well because they don't have a great roster, and I don't see them being competitive down the stretch. But some entertaining baseball last night nonetheless, some games that go long, some interesting finishes, and interesting as we go forward here to see what happens with Major League Baseball prior to the All-Star break. It's going to be not as long a show today. Just, again, it's the dog days of sports, if you will. It's a Wednesday, July 27th. There'll be more and more content, but again, not the biggest today. But I did want to touch on this before we wrap. And that's Sheldon Kennedy. If you're not aware, Sheldon Kennedy was one of the main figures that talked about and came out and talked about Graham James, who was and is a horrible human being. Graham James raped multiple young boys, young teens, hockey players, including Theo Fleury. He was in that mix. Was Sheldon Kennedy, and he came out yesterday and spoke on what's happening with Hockey Canada. He said this on Twitter: "Given my 26 years of advocating for victims, I can't sit idle any longer." He asked, "The same people with a new plan expecting different results is the definition of insanity. I call for the resignation of Hockey Canada CEO Scott Smith, his leadership team, and the board of directors to resign and step down for their positions immediately. Enough is enough already." Big statement. As you all know, Hockey Canada's on Parliament right now going through these things, how their organization has failed people over the years when it comes to dealing with sexual assault, dealing with rape allegations, and they're basically being taken over the coals. Sheldon Kennedy has worked with the NHLPA. He's worked with multiple organizations when it comes to opening up about sexual assault. He was prevalent when Kyle Beach came out with his story early in the 2022 season. And to be quite honest, I think Sheldon Kennedy's voice speaks loud here. He is a guy that has been at the forefront of this. He's dealt with this. He knows what it's like to go through these type of situations. And to me, he's an expert on the topic. Hockey Canada has been a bad organization for a long time. Just a bad place to work, if you ask me. I have my own personal thing with Hockey Canada. I interviewed with them one time, and the interview was a joke the entire time because they didn't take me seriously. It was a foregone conclusion that the interview was basically, okay, we got to interview this person, and once it's over, it's over. I didn't have a hope in hell of getting it. Whatever. I live and learn from that, but that was my one interaction with Hockey Canada, and it wasn't a great one. So with that being said, I agree with Sheldon Kennedy. I believe that Scott Smith and that leadership core should step down because the fact that they've hid these allegations for years and years, 2018, we didn't hear about it, is something that's really wrong to me. The victim was not taken seriously. Jake Virtanen was just taken to court. Yes, he was found not guilty, but the legal process was done. That never happened in these cases. Maybe all these players would be found not guilty, but Hockey Canada did not let it get there. Okay, you picked them to be on your team. That does not mean that you have to support negative behavior. It just doesn't. I'll talk on Hockey Canada more as we know more and more details. Sheldon Kennedy came out with that statement yesterday on Twitter. I felt it was important to share because his words speak volumes, in particular on this topic. Be back tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you tomorrow here on To The Point.